let me start by asking you what you think about the book launch of today, but maybe before we even get into the general context of it, from that speech alone, we could deduce what the former head of state said. He called that incident an accident of history. And then he went further to say, I accept full responsibility for decisions taken under my watch. We acted in supreme national interest so that the nation could survive. What do you make of this, Dr. Piper?
You know me very well. I'll just go straight on to it because this is a very emotional moment for me. I don't know how old you were in 1993. This is a very, very emotional moment for me. Now, it is enough that IBB, Ibrahim Babangida, is apologizing for his atrocities and the sins he committed against Nigeria. But when he's saying that it was done in the interest of the nation, I have a problem with that. And I was one of those young men who believed in Nigeria. I was a young man. I believed in MKO Abiola. I was one of those who, when the election was lost, won, nullified by the author of this book, was one of those young men who went out in the streets to protest, beaten, dragged on the floor, beaten like a common criminal, dumped into the back of a moving a military vehicle, thrown. I was dehumanized. We have not forgotten so soon the most credible election ever held in my lifetime. I was speaking with a young man a few hours ago, and I asked him, how old were you in 1993, June 12th? He said he was 2 years old. So people who were 2 years old waited till now just to get an apology, which is not a complete apology. In fact, I see this as a book launch, one of those media shows that is to raise funds and to immortalize him. And already MKO Abiola has been immortalized because June 12th remains the day, remains Nigeria's Democracy Day, the day we remember what happened to one man whose only crime was to contest an election, whose only crime was to win an election, and the only crime that we, the Nigerians, voters, the only crime we committed on June 12th, 1993, which is not a very long time ago, the only crime we committed as citizens of this country was to cast our votes for the man that we wanted to rule us. Today, all we are having is a book launch and a half-hearted apology, because at the end of the apology, this man clearly tells you it was done in national interest. What national interest? He was a military head of state, a military dictator, and he needed to transit to democracy. He failed in his lifetime to hand over to a duly elected government, the freest and the fairest election. Anytime I'm sorry, no matter what you tell me as an individual, anytime you mention IBB, the only thing I remember is June 12th. I can't remember any other thing. Because the greatest legacy he would have left behind would have been a free and a fair election, since this was the freest and fairest election to this. Well, let's accept his confessions. If he was a Christian, I would have advised he goes to a reverend father to make this confession That's my impression. Thank you very much.
Oh, Dr. Piper, you said that it's not a complete apology and that it's half-hearted. I would like you to expand on that. But do you also think that issues were actually addressed? Because some Nigerians are also asking as regards the issues surrounding the death of the foremost journalist, Dele Giwa. I mean, do you think that all of, or many of the knotty issues during his administration from, I mean, the tidbits we've seen during this book launch, do you think those issues were touched? Or did the former head of state, you know, address many of these bugging issues?
Well, let me begin by telling you that I'm never going to read that book, and I will not buy the book. So I'm not going to read the book. I'm not going to buy the book. I was alive at that time. I was a practicing journalist, and I don't need anyone to write a memoir for me to read and understand the incidents that happened when I was a young man. So when I say it's a half-hearted apology, because he said that it was done for national interest. After 32 years, after 32 long years, you waited for 32 years to tell us that the lie that we knew was a lie is actually true. So what exactly are you telling us? We knew all along that MKO Abiola won the election. So nothing has been, you see, these guys are having a tea party. Just look at all of them, clapping hands, congratulating themselves for the roles they have played, and look at the Nigeria that they're handing off to us today. A Nigeria where people are starving, people are hungry, our girls are turning into prostitution because they have no work to do. Poverty is an emblem on the face of all Nigerians. They can't buy fuel. Children can't go to school. People are sleeping in darkness because they can't pay their bills. And here we are, the who is who, all gathered in one place and launching a book, trying to rewrite the history that people like us observed. And whose history are you writing? He's writing from his perspective as the leader of the Nigerian government. I was one of those young men who protested on the streets, who were beaten, who were kicked, who were molested. Till this very minute, it's still haunting us. It still affects our mental health. And here on display on the screen, we see this same regurgitated, recycled group of people who have had the privilege to rule this country and have refused to do the right thing.
All right.
And here what we're getting at the end is an apology for a life wasted, a generation derailed, and all we get is, I am sorry. Well, what can we do? We're not God. We forgive you. Yes, you never knew what you were doing. So what can I say but to beg Nigerians? Please, my fellow Nigerians, I beg of you, forgive IBB, for he knew not what he was doing. Case closed.
Dr. Piper, that brings me to another conversation as regards what some individuals might say when it comes to consequences for actions in leadership. In some countries, even if you are, an ex-president, you are still held liable for some of the things you have done in office. But in the case of Nigeria, some would argue that it's different. Instead, maybe you are given a slap on the wrist, if at all. I would like you to speak on that. Do we have institutions strong enough to ensure that leaders are held to account even after office?
What institutions do we have? These people are above the law. In that hall that is gathered are the owners of the institution called Nigeria. Can't you see their faces? Are you blind? How are you going to hold them accountable? How are you going to stop them? So we have no option. IBB has come with his conscience, with his hands like this, and he says, forgive me. I knew I was wrong. I take responsibility. Abiola won the election. You know, he died for the election that he won. You know, we're sorry. Let's go ahead. And you're talking about accountability? No, my friend, all of this I have enunciated in a simple book that I have written, and this book is titled The Innocent Fool. The Innocent Fools. Please forgive Nigerians. We are fools. We are innocents. Forgive us, Nigerians. We are innocent fools. So this is one country in the world where things like that go without consequences. In my book, I wrote that we vote people into power, and after voting them, they enjoy something called immunity, which means even if they raped or killed your mother on the street, there will be no consequences. So no consequence for the best election ever conducted in Nigeria that was annulled by this individual. No consequence for the man whose blood was spilled just because he won an election. No consequences or no explanation for the Nigerians who came all out to vote, whose promises, whose hopes were truncated. We remember this man. It was called Hope 93. The music was all over the place. All Nigerian students, people from all over walks of life, everyone rallied around him. MKO is our man, now him go make our country better. It's our man, and everybody, the hype. In fact, what Peter Obi saw in 2023 is just a replay, an imitation of what happened in the year 1993, June 12th. We are yet to give this man the honor he deserved.
Okay.
This martyr who died for this political sins of Nigeria. Please go ahead, my brother.
Dr. Piper, because we need to go, in 30 seconds, are there takeaway from history? Have we learned anything from all we have seen and gone through as a country in the past?
Yes, we have learned a lot. We have learned that it doesn't matter how passionate you are about your candidates. It doesn't matter how genuine and sincere your candidate is. It doesn't matter what promises you give to the people. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The generality of the people can always be fooled. Even though Bob Marley said you can fool some people sometime, you can't fool all the people all the time. I think Bob Marley should be apologizing to Nigerians. In this country where we live, you can fool some people sometimes, and you can definitely fool all the people all the time when you belong to the right clique.
Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Peter Piper. It's been a pleasure having you on the show today.